Welcome to The Current. Some of the most impressive businesses aren't always the ones that people talk about the most. They're the ones that operate quietly in the background, delivering consistently, scaling properly, and building real reputations in industries that most people underestimate. And today's guest is a perfect example of that. They've helped build a business operating across London and the surrounding counties, managing hundreds of contracts, leading large teams, and growing year on year through systems, standards, and strong relationships. But what makes this conversation interesting isn't just the scale, it's the journey behind it. Merging businesses, separating divisions at the right time, and building something that actually works in a sector where consistency is everything, and mistakes are visible immediately. This is a conversation about what it really takes to run a service business. Tom, welcome to The Current. How are you?
Good morning, Blaze. Yes, I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on today.
The pleasure's mine. So Tom, let's start with the story behind the business. We know you've got a bit of an interesting journey here, from your own company, then through to joining forces. Can you just walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, of course. So I started originally in multiple sales roles before I landed my feet in a property management job, seeing a load of service contractors, high budgets for different clients and other bits and pieces. Thought I was coming to the end of my tenure. Looking at what the service providers we had at the time were doing, I felt there could be some improvements made. I had an idea to essentially set up my own cleaning business and to see if I could make a go at trying to revolutionize the industry, so to speak. At that time, technology was changing. So I entered into the market essentially in a partnership with another business. We started cleaning residential contracts, offering a kind of hands-on approach to cleaning with a very much a strong structure on reporting. At the time, a lot of companies didn't do much reporting, so we thought about entering this into, and it became a little bit of a niche element for a short period of time. The business grew, essentially. My partnership with my existing business partners left. And then after a short period of time, as we were growing and were going through, I was offering a very small maintenance service at the time. I then merged with another company called Daco Property Maintenance. So my original company, Lloyd's, merged into that business. Both of the companies essentially ran under one umbrella, offering cleaning and maintenance services. We merged in 2020, just when COVID hit. So that was a little bit of a bump in the road, so to speak. But actually what it did was it really pushed our focus into growing the business more. I think service at that time was being offered in a very kind of unique manner. And we adapted that way. And actually the cleaning division grew even more so in that period with the level of attention we were putting into it, because I think cleaning was obviously an incredibly important thing to be doing at that time. The business grew and grew and grew. And then last year, we actually split the business out. We just realized that cleaning couldn't sit under the maintenance. It needed its own identity, its own appearance to look not so much reputable, but it just give it a bit of a stronger position. And since then, we've been running both companies separately. My eye's more on the cleaning. We've grown to a huge number of contracts now, servicing a lot of sites, as you mentioned, within London and the surrounding counties. And we just grew by really getting the consistency and attention to detail correct, essentially.
That's an interesting journey, and I guess you could say consistency is key. So definitely, yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, we know from an outside, a cleaning business, they can look quite simple. But of course, we know that's not the reality, especially once you're running at scale. So what does it actually take to run an operation like yours properly, juggling so many of these contracts? And what are the parts that people probably don't really see?
Yeah, I mean, the real key thing is the people and the systems. I think having the right people on board always guarantees you the right results. Getting cleaners that are well-trained, driven and supported means that they deliver consistent standards. With growth, that brings a bigger challenge. The systems you have to put in place, like the importance of structure. And we actually audit our own sites. So we have an auditor that goes around once a month and audits our own standards, so we can check on how we're delivering those and an expectation that we're getting the standards right ourselves and in-house. We also have a lot of communication with our cleaners, and we're also quite accountable. We understand that we're going to get things wrong. Learning from those issues and building on that's always been a key focus. Anyone can win a cleaning contract, okay? But it's about maintaining those standards and maintaining those standards as you grow. And that's been one of the biggest challenges for us. One of the things we're most passionate about doing is getting that consistency right and making sure that, we are delivering the services that the clients expect from us.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And especially in a time where quick, but maintaining these high standards as you grow, I guess that's of utmost importance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always the way. I mean, cost is obviously a big factor in our industry as well, which we're aligned to. But again, it's just about getting the right people. If you can get the right cleaners in that have that good work ethic, they understand what you're asking to do, you train them in the right way, and you're constantly monitoring them, keeping them up to date with all the latest legislation on COSH, colour coding and other bits, and just making sure that they're in the know and they know what they're doing, they will deliver good results. But you have to also just monitor those standards. That's another key element.
Yeah, I think people in any business, because it's people that make the businesses, is the most underestimated part.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're very blessed to have, I've got a great team in the office, really passionate people who kind of really care about what they're doing. And the cleaning team as well, we engage with them. We're constantly kind of keeping them up to date and having events with them, just making sure that they're doing their job and that they enjoy the job that they're doing as well.
Just a quick question. We will dive into this a little bit later, but you mentioned trying to find people who are passionate, hard workers, got the good ethics. Now that's not an easy task, but it sounds like you've been able to maybe juggle that and find it. What advice would you give to people who are trying to, recruit people like this yourself?
You have to take a chance with people. It's about investing in the people that you bring in. A lot of the people that you kind of bring in won't have, the necessary skill set initially. But as long as the attitude is there, that's the key thing. And the ability that I think another thing is attention to detail is big in our industry. If you can tell that someone has a real eye for detail, that's important. But most of these things can be trained anyway. So I think really it's about making sure that when you bring people on, you're supporting them the best you can. You're on site, making sure they've got the equipment they need, they know what they're doing, you run through the proper training. And if also they have an issue or they're doing things wrong, not to overreact, to be supportive and helpful and just try and nurture them. That's the key thing for us.
Attitude and attention. Yeah, that's a good key phrase to keep in mind. Now, Tom, we know one of the things you mentioned previously is about pricing, because we know people just see an hourly rate, but they don't really see anything beyond that. So what actually sits underneath that number? Why do you think that's a bit of a misunderstanding?
This is the kicker for us. I mean, the hourly rate element is a challenge, right? What clients see is cost. They're always looking at, can we deliver the cleaning at the cost? And one of the things a long person told me a while ago was try and be the smallest number in the biggest budget, right? Because it helps you kind of manage things a little bit differently. But what they don't see is the holiday cover we have to put in place. At the management time we put into kind of looking after the contracts, both from an HR perspective and from a auditing and day-to-day management. The audits we put in as well. We have an auditor that goes round, the administration, the compliance. On top of that, we're big on health and safety here. We have regular toolbox talks, lots of training in-house, especially in relation to current modern standards. I mentioned COSH earlier, colour coding, big things in our industry that I find a lot of competitors aren't really kind of involved in. The colour coding, again, is just the correct use of cloths and mops for certain areas. And COSH, again, a real big thing in our industry at the moment in terms of the control of substances hazardous to health, making sure we have the right signs on site. We're invested in a new QR coding system now. So you have live data on your COSH and your health and safety elements. A lot of our clients work in the systems with fire management now, so we have to be big on that. But it's just a lot of operationally heavy behind the scenes, right? It really is. And if the cheaper you go, in my opinion, sadly, you lose out on the supervision, the auditing, and the consistency drops. But it's obviously the entry point, right? And it's not, but it shouldn't be the long-term decision. Value shows over time. That's my point. And one of our key metrics of our business is value. We give more than we take in payment. And that's certainly the way that I want to run this business. Yes, we are more expensive than some of our competitors, but I feel the proof's in the pudding, so to speak, that you generally get a better level of service from us. That's just my biased opinion of being the business owner. But again, you're not paying for the hours, you pay for consistency.
I like that. You pay for consistency. You mentioned operational admin and the burden. Where does pressure normally show up for you at the moment? Where maybe the areas people don't really see behind the scenes? Is it in the office or is it in the audits? Where is it?
It's a lot, actually. It's ordering the materials. There's a lot on the material side of things, making sure the cleaners are all stocked up. Holiday cover is another big one. The bigger you grow, the more holiday cover you have to put in place. And we also have to deal quite heavily with a lot of absences. One of the things we're big at is providing cover at short notice. If a cleaner calls in the morning and says, I'm unavailable, we will look to get replacement there same day. We're all about, not interrupting the service where possible. In fact, my division manager juggles an awful lot on this at the moment in terms of having to make sure that, all the contracts are correctly staffed at all times. But we do really well at that. We've got a really good network of people, and that's another way around it. If you have a good network of cleaners around you who are willing to work for the business, who are willing to put in additional hours, then that's a testament to that we're doing things right, because they are on standby, they are available to help us. And that's been a real kind of, feather on our bow, so to speak, is to have, a team willing to step in if we need to, or put the extra hours in, even at weekends if needed.
Wow, that's good advice as well, relying on people again and the network, branching out. Tom, we mentioned, obviously you've been growing. I think the figures you said are roughly 25% year on year. Now, that's no easy task.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of that we know comes down from standards. But what does maintaining these high standards actually look in practice, and how important to you is reputation in driving that growth? Do you think the two go hand in hand? Is there any correlation?
Absolutely. I feel that our biggest strength here has been basically on our reputation as a business. We've grown kind of organically. We've been very blessed to work with a number of exceptional clients who are delivering high standards themselves. And we want to align ourselves to those clients. And most of our clients in the industry are all pushing themselves. But it's also just about the importance of having strong systems in place for us on the and delivering and consistency again. And that, I think, in its sense, builds reputation. I think we've got, a reputation of being a very good cleaning contractor in the industry, and people talk. That's the nature of the industry that we work in, and they recommend us. But again, it's the importance of just making sure we're visible. We follow up. The standards are good. We have auditing, and reputation compounds over time. The other issue of this is poor service spreads quickly, but then again, so does good service. So we're the other end of that at the moment, and you can't market your way out of poor delivery. I think that's another thing. So yeah, we're fortunate that it's been organic at the moment, but I think we will look into marketing. We would like to get into other areas and other sectors, so to speak, that we're looking at the moment. Just a natural occurrence as the business grows over time. But yeah, reputation for us has always been key. And I think it is super important in terms of growing a business that you are, you have a reputation of being a high quality, high standard service business.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely. You mentioned earlier, people come into this as an entry level. Now, obviously the difference between an entry level company and people like yourself who would have this continuous growth. What advice would you give to maybe an entry level company that are trying to take it to that next level? Maybe they're trying to grow, they're trying to improve their standards. What would you say they should begin to implement, or some standards they should do? Any quick advice you could give them?
Yeah, I like to be hands-on initially when I was a business owner, is to go out on the field, have a look at your sites, monitor your team, check your standards yourself, right? Ultimately, your name's above the door, so to speak, as I used to say. And you want to make sure that your business is delivering what you want it to deliver. And the key thing is to build yourself a kind of a table of metrics that you want to follow, right? Your key areas that you want the business to have its identity in. Standards should always be top of that, right? You want to make sure that when you're doing your audits, you're making sure that your cleaners are following those standards. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, it kind of reputation's built on what happens when no one's watching, right? In terms of the client just sees it getting done and then they're happy with it. The issues is when you start to get complaints. So if you're known for delivering that service without causing your client any hassles, it just happens without any issues. And actually, residents or your clients are very, very kind of good feedback in terms of what you're doing. It's just a natural growth, but this thing takes time. That's the thing, is time is the key element here, is just making sure that you're not trying to grow too quickly, because again, growing quickly means that you've got a lot to handle. So really it's about focusing on standards. I would say the key thing is just make sure your standards are right, and your communication with your clients is also key as well.
Keep your standards high and don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves, I guess, and get in it there as well as it is.
I mean, I spent a number of years just out with cleaners, actually cleaning myself when I started a business out in the van. I did carpet cleaning, I did window cleaning. You have such a different knowledge when you know the services that you're selling. And I wanted to educate myself on that. So I kind of knew what we were delivering. Not say that other companies don't know what they're doing, but it just helped from a business owner's perspective that you've been out, you know what they need to do, and you understand the job that they're doing, and you're able to kind of sell that and imprint the standards onto your team as well.
Yeah, you've lived and breathed it. You're not telling, you're leading by example.
Yeah, absolutely. Some horror stories on that, Blaze, if I'm being honest. You really have led by example, but yeah.
Definitely. Maybe we'll touch on one of those a little bit later. Now, of course, we do know that this industry does have a bit of a high turnover industry, and we touched on it briefly, and I did promise we'd come back to it. But of course, you've built quite strong loyalty within your team. Just quickly, how have you done that? And what have you learned about leading people in these service-based businesses?
Yeah, I think it is known for a high turnover. And it's strange in that degree now because wages have risen quite a lot now. It's on par with a lot of different things, but it's quite a physically demanding job at the same time. And that could be quite a challenge for a lot of people. But what we've done is we focus on just kind of looking after the team, right? I mean, loyalty is driven by respect, giving people a clear structure, good communication, and also making them feel like they're part of something. Right? We're big on this in terms of culture. It's very hard to grow. It's very hard to keep consistently, so to speak. And loyalty is not an accident. It's built over time. I think our cleaners are ultimately the product. They go out, they do the job. Reputation is the biggest KPI in cleaning, and we need them to do that. But if you look after your people, they look after your clients.
I like that. Look after people, look after your clients.
Yeah, it's a cheesy saying, but actually what it really does match because, you can have all the contracts in the world, but if your cleaners aren't delivering the standards, you're just not going to get it right. And the key thing for us is, yes, we're going to get some cleaners, unfortunately, that will join us that won't be able to do the standards that we hold ourselves to. We'll give our all to make sure that they're able to do that. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of how it is. But our turnover rate is very low. We've got a number of cleaners that have been with us since the start, since I started the business in 2014. In fact, I've got 8 cleaners that are still with me that I joined then that are still working. And that is a real testament to how we've grown this. And they're definitely on board with what we're doing. They'd like to think that there's opportunities for them down the line as we grow as well. And there has been for some of them. But I think that they also spread the seed, so to speak. When people join, you see these people that have been here for a long time. And I think that helps as well.
You can see the company culture is infectious in a good way,
Yes. We have a party every year. We're trying to do a cleaners party. We all meet up. We have a drink, we have a dinner, just something to kind of enjoy it. And we also do monthly awards for cleaners in the sense of standards. So we give out certificates of excellence and a bonus for that as well. WhatsApp groups with lots of pictures. I think one of the best things we did one year was that we asked them to send pictures next to their Christmas trees at Christmas. We asked them to send messages and other bits and pieces through various times of the year. Because, the issue is that a lot of them are on site doing jobs on their own, and therefore they won't really feel that connected with the business. So we try and kind of integrate this WhatsApp groups and other bits just to make sure everyone kind of feels together. And that's kind of been a really good, strong point for us.
Sounds like it's a community to work with. I can see why you'd have such good retention. That's a really nice thing to hear, especially about the future as well.
Listen, it helps, right? And ultimately, is you got to grow. You got to make sure you get the right people in. And they, as I said earlier, they do well for the business. They work hard. They deliver the standards, and that's what makes us
amazing. We've touched on growth a lot. Now, we haven't really talked about it, but of course, you merge businesses, you scaled quite quickly, and then obviously you managed to separate at the perfect time. What would you say are maybe, or maybe not perfect, didn't you? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way?
You're going to fail. I think that's, and you have to accept that you're going to fail. We took on a really large contract a long time ago that we managed well, but it was a big step up for us. Ultimately, we fell short in certain areas, and we ended up losing that contract. But what it did do was it drove standards up, and it was almost like a shock to us in the sense of how to manage contracts with a high number of cleaners. Actually, what that did for us was incredible. It really kind of changed the way we operate as a business. And I feel things like that, lessons like that, are really kind of important. And that ultimately, you've just got to keep going at it, right? You've got to keep the consistency. I'm going to say that word so often in this podcast today, but it is such a key element of what you do, right? Standards can slip within 3 or 4 months if you're not on top of them. So you must always make sure that you're just staying on top of standards via, audits, other bits, so that you keep sure that you're delivering that all the time consistently.
That's really honest, and I thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of people will resonate that. Sometimes it's all about framing. You can view it as a failure, or you can view it as a lesson, and evidently that spurred you to take on the next. But if you could go back and maybe you'd start different, what would you do differently today?
You know what? People say this to me a lot in terms of what I'd do differently. I'm not really one for looking back and kind of thinking too much on that point, if I'm being honest with you. I feel that, you're going to learn no matter what happens in business. You're gonna trip, you're gonna fall, but it's about picking up certain elements. And if I'll be honest with you, I think the health and safety side of things was something I didn't pick up on enough initially, but I was quite small back then. And where I 5001 now, one of the key elements for businesses is making sure you're on top of that, and we really are now. So I'd probably say when I originally started, more so on that side of it, but actually now our systems are really, really kind of strong. We do an awful lot to make sure that our team is safe. and that adds an awful lot of cost to us. But actually, stuff like that's imperative to make sure that our team are working in the best possible environment, and our clients also as well, because we're responsible for a lot of risks on sites with cables and chemicals and other bits and pieces.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you are right. Don't look back too much, focus on the forward, but, plan. Now, in our previous conversation, you mentioned some of the more specialist work you've done. I think you're talking about a Daco Cleaning commercial, even hazmat. So would you just maybe give us a few examples or stories of some of the jobs that people would never expect a cleaning company to be involved in, or anything that resonates?
It's all types of stuff, really. The general stuff that we do is carpet cleaning. I used to love carpet cleaning. Carpet cleaning, one of my favorite things to do. Really an impactful thing when you look at it. Carpets are, in their essence, quite disgusting. We walk on them every day. We don't get them cleaned that often. I mean, you wouldn't wear your t-shirt for months on end without getting it cleaned. But we do a lot of carpet cleaning in unusual spots. I think some of the most unusual things we do are, the specialist elements we do are doff cleaning now, which is essentially 150 degrees pressure washing for heritage stone. So essentially where you have stone, it basically cleans it through using superheated water. Obviously an incredibly high risk job, very niche, very specialist, but obviously an incredibly useful modern tool to get really strong driven results. We do an awful lot of biohazardous cleaning as well, which I really don't want to get too much into on this podcast, if I'm being honest with you. But some of the stuff we have to deal with and clean is quite specialist. I've got a lot of brave members of my team, including myself, who've been out to clean situations like this. We've had sewage leaks and other bits and pieces. That is a one that we have to deal with on a number of occasions in an evening, which is quite a testament. And I think COVID was the biggest one, right? I remember when we started back, we were offering COVID cleans, which at the time was so risky, right? The virus was in its early stages, and people were it was a doom mongering period. And I remember myself and my division manager going out in a van, full hazmat suits, doing COVID cleans at blocks, which was really, really interesting. PPE at that time was an extortionate commodity value. I mean, you were buying hand sanitizers for like £50 a bottle at that time, and PPE was light, but actually it was a really interesting thing to do. And again, it kind of built us, right? It was things that we hadn't done before that ultimately put certain standards and processes in place for future works that we're doing. So not so that we're not good with PPE anyway, we've always been good with PPE, but we put processes in place, pre-checks, end checks that kind of help us now. And so yeah, I've had a whole load of different things. But biohazardous ones are the worst. I think there's a lot of different things you can get into. We do jet washing, we do other bits and pieces, end of tenancy cleans. But yeah, those two are pretty unique. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, definitely gives a broader perspective on when you think about just cleaning. Yeah, 150 degrees. I bet that's really satisfying.
Honestly, it's funny. It's weird things about it. When you look at it and you go through it, it's like a jet wash essentially, but because the steam kills algae and it penetrates to low pressure, it's amazing what it does. But it's just a giant kettle, right? It's essentially a giant kettle. And the one thing I will say is London has very hard water, so it does need an awful lot of descaling. But that's just a little byproduct of using hot water on those situations.
Do you know what's striking me from this conversation? It seems like your perspective on life is so positive and optimistic. It sounds like even COVID, you're thinking of it in a positive way, which is good, but because you're right, it's positive from everything.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that saying attack the day. I hate these things where you have to take every day as it comes. I mean, you have to try and be as positive as possible. And honestly, the energy as a business owner is infectious, right? The way that you drive your business forward every day, you come into work, you motivate your team, you are the leading example. You bring people in to also be that leading example. And I feel that has such an impact on the team and the business as a whole. And if you are seen to be driving everything with a form of energy and purpose, again, like the infectious element I said earlier on, it really kind of pushes the team onwards. And, investing in modernizing your own company so that people can see you're putting new systems in place. Like AI is a big thing for us now, building our own systems in-house to kind of manage certain elements of the business. And just so that you're growing, you're pushing and you're driving. And I think that I've always said that customer service for me is one of the most important elements in business. If you're able to give a customer an excellent level of service and they come off the phone or they come off the email thinking, wow, that was really good, that has such a meaning in business for me. And that's ultimately been my main driver, is that, the customer has to have the best possible experience. Yes, price is important. And obviously we work to that factor, but service is everything. We're not in a restaurant business, but actually cleaning's no different. It shouldn't be any different. And I feel like I have to drive that the best I can just to push that element onto my team.
we can really feel and see the value. Value is the first important thing to you, adding value to your team, whether it's a WhatsApp group chat, whether that's your clients, the end-to-end service, being that attention to detail, which is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, listen, it's everything, right? I mean, the smallest details mean the most, right? I mean, if you go into Michelin star restaurants are no different. They're built on the smallest of details, right? Drop a fork on the floor, they pick it up. It's no different in the business that you're going. And if you want to be, prime, you want to offer that level of service, the attention to detail has to be there. If you want to grow your business to be different from anyone else's, the attention to detail has to be there. Consistency, again, another word, I keep saying it, but that's also so important. And you've got to drive that, right? You have to make sure that that's being followed. And that requires, a lot of effort and energy. But at the end of the day, we're a very privileged position to be where I am at the moment in terms of being able to build something like this. It's an enormous privilege. And I've got, a wonderful amount of people working with us to drive this forward. I feel that we're kind of at the early stages still at the business. There's still a lot to do. And I'm very excited about, the opportunities and futures that hopefully we have very shortly.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. On that note as well, one of my signature questions, I always like to take people in the back of my DeLorean. I want to take you to the end of March 2027. Now we're looking back on 2026. Now 2026 has been a great year for you and for Daco. It's been consistent. You've raised the standards. You've kept the positivity and the energy. You've driven culture and company ethos throughout. Now what would need to happen to make 2026 a successful year like that?
Do you know, I think there's a few things. I think having a few more stronger systems in place. And we're actually about to launch a new system within our team that manages a certain element of our business that has been very difficult to manage. Don't want to give too much away, but that's been like key. AI has been a real key thing for us, because if you can make life easier for everyone else, ultimately, or save people time, they have more time to spend in other areas or more important areas of the business. I think retention is key at the end of that year. If I'm thinking we've retained all this business, because we're delivering those standards, that's what we want to do. Sustainable growth, I think by the end of the year, by saying that we've taken stuff on, that we're not overstretching ourselves, and just more control operationally. I think, just being able to know that, we're on the right track. Ultimately for me, it's about making sure that we're delivering the standards. And if I know at the end of that year, and I sit there, I think, right, our audit levels are up, right? Our cleaning team are trained. No accidents this year. That'd be amazing. Absolutely fantastic.
We're excited to see just how you accomplish these things. And I have no doubt in my mind, if I had this conversation with you next year, you'd be telling me just how you made it happen and many more things.
Yeah.
Now, final question to finish. Bit of a philosophical one, but I think it's important because we all start businesses for different reasons and we all have different goals. And you probably do have your own reason. A quick question. What does freedom mean to you?
I think ultimately it's building the business that runs without me, but I think that's kind of a bit of a pipe dream at this moment in time. Something down the line, more control over my time. That's the biggest thing. Time is one of my biggest elements. Is being able to kind of put it in the right places. Time management's been one of my key things. It gives me a lot of freedom. I've always said, like, weekends, I try and shut off at weekends and have my family time, and my work time is my work time. And that allows me to kind of switch off, because I feel that you can get too involved in these things, and ultimately having a clearer mind and being able to kind of, think out things outside the box through exercise, whatever you're doing, it just helps you as a person. And I think freedom is obviously creating more opportunities within my team, right? Making sure they've got more bits to do. We've just actually brought on a new member of the team at the moment, and I'm enjoying the fact that I've trained him on certain elements. That's given me a bit of freedom on bits of my job, which enables me to focus on different areas. So it's little things like that. But you could say I've kind of taken on something else as a result of doing that. But I feel like I'm very lucky as a business owner anyway. You get a degree of freedom, but I think you have to respect that freedom. I think you have to not, be seen to be taking too much freedom, so to speak. But yeah, no, it's basically just controlling my time more so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of people resonate that. Don't feel guilty. Ultimately we get into business for a few reasons, whether that's financial, but freedom. And I think ultimately as well, because you're coming from the right place, you're driving it with value, you're trying to support your team, I've no doubt that you will achieve freedom, whatever that means to you. But Tom, I just want to thank you Thank you for being so positive, bringing the positivity, driving company culture, striving for the best standards. Because you're right, you didn't have to. You probably could have got away with it, doing less, doing more. But it's clear to see that you and the work you guys do at Daco Cleaning are striving for greatness. You're striving to lead the team through positivity, through good times, through bad times, and you're continuing to grow. You're not being settling. And thank you as well.
Thank you, Blaze. Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. 10 years, just over 10 years into it now. And actually, I feel like I've just got started. The energy's still there. The market's changing. The world is changing. AI is coming. I don't think they're going to be robots taking over cleaning anytime soon, Blaze, if I'm being honest with you, although people keep telling me they will be. I feel that we're heading towards a more kind of, a tougher market, but there's still so many exciting times to come. And I'm really looking forward to the challenges the future's going to bring us.
Amazing. And on that wonderful positive note, we'll end it. Thank you so much for coming on to The Current, Tom. This has been amazing.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.